All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Danielle. I do communications here at 2W Tech, and we're super excited about today's conversation. We are diving into the ins and the outs of evaluating an ERP system and all the complexities that come with it. So for those who don't know, 2W is Epicor's largest reselling and implementation partner in North America. And today's expert is Chelsea. She's one of our account executives. And she actually won Epicor Sales Rep of the Year last year, which is super exciting. So Chelsea, do you want to start by sharing a little bit about yourself and why this topic means so much to you?
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. Appreciate you having me on the call today. In essence, I came from a manufacturing background. I worked at a couple of different job shop manufacturers that faced, a lot of different problems that I help solve today. So now here I am at the forefront of helping manufacturers face their challenges and help put in a solution in place. Whether that's an ERP software system, Microsoft solution sets, taking things from on-premise into Azure, whatever it might be. But essentially today's discussion that we're going to focus on is really guiding a prospect through their journey of searching for a new ERP system. There's a lot of unknown territories for some of those listening in. So we're going to touch base on a lot of the efforts that not only that I go through from working at a manufacturer, but from a prospect perspective, maybe as you're thinking about taking on this initiative for 2024. So, just to kind of get things started off, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we call the ERP pyramid.
To my knowledge, the pyramid kind of categorizes ERP systems. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. In terms of the actual scales themselves, there's 4 tiers. You have your top tier where there's SAP and Oracle's, maybe a JD Edwards. These are billion-dollar corporations, plus your multinational companies. Those are the ERP systems that you're looking at if you're one of those big 3. They're very customized to what your organization needs. Then there's what we call the tier 2, which is where Epicor ERP falls in line. And that is the ERP software that us over here at 2W represent. We focus on the SMB market, the mid-market, which is pretty much, you're going to fall as low as maybe a $5 million a small mom and pop shop or, up to, $100 to $500 million. Some of those Fortune 100 and 500 companies. Once you get into those tier 3 and tier 4s, those are essentially considered your entry-level ERP software solutions. They don't offer a lot of functionality, but they are definitely a great step up from just having, disparate Excel spreadsheets, just doing a lot of manual data entry. So we're really going to focus on what a tier 2 evaluation cycle looks like today.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know before diving into all this. So like any discussion we've had in the past, I kind of want to mirror the process to which a client goes through. So to start, what typically drives clients to realize they even need an ERP system, whether that be Epicor or another one?
Yeah, well, any company, no matter what type of organization or industry you need some type of software to help manage their day-to-day operations and their financials. Epicor ERP, and for those that might not have an ERP system that might be listening in, ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. And this type of software is specifically geared towards discrete manufacturers and for companies that really want to gain efficiencies in all areas of their business. So the number one reason of why somebody would be looking for a new ERP system would be, maybe they're growing and they're, outgrowing the current software that they have in place today. So managing the complexity of their operations and the ability to scale is becoming quite cumbersome to the growth of their business. Maybe they're running into a lot of data discrepancies. Everybody's running around with their heads chopped off, like, why is this report saying this, but Pam over in this department is saying it says this. Anywho, the main goals of getting onto an ERP system and or some of the challenges consist of time-consuming manual processes, poor visibility into business operations as a whole, And then in a nutshell, obviously just poor customer service. If we're not getting our customers the answer that they need when they require it, that's a big issue. So I would say in summary, as a company is growing, as they're trying to enhance communications in their department, and then of course, enhance that communication and customer service level as well.
Okay. And did you come across any of these scenarios in your past?
I did. And I will go into the whole list of, the types of problems that we faced. But just working in a small company, I wore a lot of hats. I worked in the front office. I helped out in operations. I helped out the shop floor users. When it came to customer service, answering the phones, getting our customers the answer that they need, wondering where their shipments was. It was a constant battle of, filtering through these old school file cabinets and, running around where I could find an answer by a click of a button. And I didn't really know what ERP was, Danielle, but I knew that there had to be something out there that was actually going to help me. So that's when I had started off on my journey into finding out what ERP was. And then when I kind of found out what it was, at the other manufacturing company I worked at, they had an entry level one. So I was like, wow, there is something out there to help me and every other type of manufacturer with their problems. And that's when I got into software to, help manufacturers with their problems, because I personally went through their pain for 6 years, and I really just kind of wanted to be at the forefront of helping people figure it out and with their journey in technology.
Awesome. It's crazy to think of a world where you didn't know what an ERP system is, because now you're one of our experts, which is awesome.
Yeah, good job, made it.
So going back to when you were working for this company that didn't have an ERP system in place at all, how did you go about in identifying any of the features that your company required to get out of the solution?
Well, once I actually figured out what ERP was, it all started off with research. And once I had a grasp as to what it was, we started off by really gathering our whole team together, all of the key stakeholders, the owners of the business, from, the guys and the gals out on the shop floor, just figuring out what problems we're facing today and putting together essentially what we call a Christmas list. Here's a list of wants, here's a list of absolute needs, and here's a list of maybe some like to haves. Because again, not knowing what ERP is, I had no idea what the offering even was. So, that's kind of what I went through. And then from an account executive perspective, me helping my prospects, it really does help when you come to the table prepared when you're talking to your vendors of what your requirements are. We're going to do our best to handhold you through the process to dive deeper into what the challenges and what the goals are and how your business process looks like today versus the future state. But essentially, starting off with that Christmas list is going to be key importance to the whole evaluation cycle.
Okay. And then what would you say the next phase is after you get all that figured out?
Yeah, absolutely. The next phase is honestly the most important phase. So myself and what we call a solutions engineer, that's the technical person that partners with me on our prospects evaluation. So essentially what we do is we like to come on site. It's a big value driver of Epicor and 2W Tech is we like that in-person interaction. Even pre-COVID, when everything was done virtual, we like to get on site. And customers and prospects, they love it too, because, it gives you a chance to sit down with us, ask those deep driven questions of, what the software offers, create that relationship. But we post up in a conference room. It's typically, depending on what size organization you are, it's about a 4 to 8 hour engagement. We'll meet with each of your key resources at the organization to understand the challenges, understand the business process as it sits today, gather documentation. Maybe we're asking for a sample of a sales order or a bill of materials, but we're doing all of this in preparation of what the big next step is called a tailored demonstration. So it's a really exciting day where we get to learn all about our prospect. We get to build that relationship with them. They get to build that relationship with us, ask us, questions about the technology world, get to know what the software offers, in turn for us to come back to them, and they get to sit back and take a look at how their business would run in the software. It's a pretty cool couple of weeks of engagement for both the prospect and our company as we're getting to know each other and really, strategizing and putting together the right solution set for them.
Okay, yeah. Wow. I mean, there seems to be a lot of upfront work before you're able to even get to the point of demonstration. And then it sounds like even then the prospect still doesn't have everything they need to make a final decision. So safe to say this is quite the process. So do you ever get pushback on this? I mean, do people expect it to be this complex?
I would say it's 50-50 in all honesty. Some of the customers that we're talking to are coming off of some type of maybe entry-level ERP, as I explained, that tier 3 and tier 4 that we discussed earlier on. So they have somewhat of an idea of what the evaluation cycle looks like. Whereas some manufacturers are coming off of nothing, the QuickBooks, the Excel spreadsheets, and they have their own process in place, and that's totally okay. So that's kind of one, somebody coming off at entry level, two, somebody coming off of nothing. And then there's kind of a third category, and there's those that actually work with a third-party consultant that is an expert in evaluating ERPs. Kind of crazy, huh? So when those folks come to the table, they are very prepared with, documentation, Excel spreadsheets, that Christmas list of requirements, and all the processes already laid out. So when we have our initial first call with our prospects, we don't really know what we're getting into just yet, but it's our goal to dive deep and understand what they expect from the evaluation cycle and our sales evaluation cycle. And what we do is we put together a joint action plan. And the joint action plan is exactly what it sounds like. Jointly, we put together action items from each organization to make sure that we are getting them what they require in the time frame that they require it. And every step of the way, we make sure that we're staying in alignment on that action plan. So we understand that they're going to put forth a lot of effort. A lot of resources are going to be involved. Think if they're spending, we'll just say 5 hours with us for discovery, 5 hours with us for demo. We've got proposal deliveries and reference calls. Just multiply that amount of hours times the amount of resources from their end, times the amount of vendors that they're actually looking at. You can only imagine these meetings can be pretty expensive, and this is just the pre-sale. They haven't even selected a vendor just yet, and we won't even get into the implementation. But that's a whole nother story. So I mean, you can do the math, Danielle. It's a very intense evaluation cycle leading into an intense implementation cycle, and we don't want to sugarcoat it throughout the process. So we just want to make sure we're gaining alignment with our prospects, partnering with them to end all, just make sure that we're getting them what they need when they require it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but all worth it in the end. I mean, you'd rather take your time and find a system that'll benefit your business in the way that you need it to, rather than rush the whole process, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But now, okay, let's dive into the considerations clients make when evaluating different ERPs. What does that look like?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to your first question of like, what are they looking for? Okay, you think of growth, you think of eliminating these manual processes. One thing that comes into mind are disparate systems. Well, what do I mean by that? Every organization has multiple ways in which they do something. Everybody has an Excel spreadsheet, and Excel spreadsheets won't always go away, but we want to minimize them as much as possible and bring to the table during discovery and implementation what that spreadsheet is doing for you and get it into the ERP system. Let the ERP system drive that. Well, sometimes you can't get rid of these disparate systems. And one that comes to mind, a couple that come to mind could be like a product configurator, e-commerce platform, customer relationship management, also known as CRM. You know, at the end of the day, customers want the ease of use. They want to make sure that their data is secure, and they want to evaluate whether or not it makes sense to integrate into these solutions and or bring it all into Epicor ERP. Obviously, we're talking about ERP in general today, but yeah, I would say CRM's probably a really big one that we just sometimes it makes sense to just keep it where it's at, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go back to the disparate systems part. From what I understand, Epicor takes a crawl, walk, run approach to the implementation. So that means like you don't get rid of all the systems at once, right?
You bring up a good point in regards to phasing things in, Danielle, and industry terminology, crawl, walk, run. You are going to hear that quite often through the evaluation process, because when we get to implementation, it's our goal that we want to get the foundation of your business up and running as quickly and as smoothly as possible. Because you hear about these, these horror stories of implementations because, customers tend to take on too much at once. So let's just talk, for example, about one type of system that we might recommend phasing in. And a phased approach might mean a little bit different to me than it does to you in regards to timing. But essentially, phasing something in might even be, before you go live. Maybe, you just don't want to start off with it, but if you want to make sure that you go live with it. Or maybe phasing something in is right after go live. Okay, we've got the business up and running in the new ERP system. Now what piece of technology can we take in next? And a prime example of this is what we call the CRM systems. And that is, sometimes these customers will have a system already in place, whether it's just Excel spreadsheets, they're managing all their opportunities through that, or they actually went through a full-blown evaluation cycle and implementation that required a lot of time and resources from their perspective. And they're not in a position to get rid of that because they're comfortable there. It costs them a lot of money. It is continuing to cost them money because they're maintaining it. So we need to determine in the sales evaluation process, when does it make sense to talk about integrations? Do they want to integrate their CRM into Epicor? Do they want to leave it as a standalone? These are all things that we want to make sure that we talk to the client about when it comes to the actual project, the implementation down the road.
Okay. Now, how does a customer determine whether they want to replace their systems altogether with Epicor or integrate their current systems?
I would say the big reason of why a client wouldn't want to integrate one of the systems is because of the effort it took to build it in the first place. HubSpot, okay. Salesforce, those are monster CRM systems. It takes effort, just like an ERP, to get them up and running. So this kind of leads us into the complexity of integrations in general. So the cost of integrations comes into play. So let's just say, we're talking to XYZ company and they have, a large CRM system in place today. And they're going to say, hey, let's get our ERP system up and running first and foremost, quote to cash, procure to pay. We want to go live in 9 to 12 months. And then once we're feeling comfortable, let's take a look at integrating our CRM system into Epicor. Well, as their trusted advisor, we're going to bring in, an integrations team. We're going to bring in the consultants, and we're going to properly scope out this work effort. Some of the things that are going to come into play is the cost. Epicor, we'll just use that as an example, is an open API architected system. It integrates into any other software that has an open API. But it's not that simple. It is expensive because we need to talk about whether or not they want a one-way integration, a bidirectional integration. What do I mean by that? Do they just want the ERP to feed the CRM, or do they want both the ERP and the CRM system to feed back information to each other real time? So we have to take a look at what fields do they want to interact with one another? How often do they want to update? Is it real time? Is it just twice a day? So just kind of throwing out some examples of the complexities that go into scoping out an integration. And then once you actually have the integration in place today, there's the maintenance of it. Epicor does 2 major version upgrades per year, which is fabulous because you are always on the latest and the greatest version of the software from a cloud perspective. But what that means from an organizational standpoint that has our software in place is there's testing every time that you do an upgrade, and these integrations come into play. So every time that there's a major version upgrade, you want to make sure that you're testing that integration to make sure nothing breaks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, I get that. So, and this is just a random question that popped in my head, but is there any benefit in doing, for example, a CRM integration in phase 1 instead of later down the road?
You know, again, a case-by-case scenario, but from a 2W's perspective, we're always going to recommend the crawl, walk, run approach. We're all human beings when it comes to learning new things, and undergoing an ERP implementation can be quite turbulent. We don't want to take on too much at one time because our team, to set you up for success, we are going to require 25 to 35% of your resource availability during the course of the implementation. So again, we want to make sure we're getting the nuts and the bolts, we're building the foundation of that house, and we're getting you to go live. We're minimizing as much risk as possible. We're securing your ROI every step of the way, and making sure that you guys feel comfortable, because change management is the biggest obstacle that we face in the evaluation cycle as well as in the implementation cycle. People get scared. They've been doing something a certain way for so many years, and then all of a sudden us software folks come to the table and we want to, uplift and change all these things. So let's lay the foundation, minimize the risk, secure the ROI, and when you're ready to take on more technology, because Epicor is a very robust system, we can do that by building out those technology roadmaps, making sure we're having quarterly business review meetings with you, and making sure that you understand the software before we throw any more technology at you.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So really quickly, I want to be cautious on time, but I want to touch on security. So what are some of the security topics that prospects are thinking about or asking about during the evaluation process?
Yeah, and honestly, this is a really good question to kind of wrap up the evaluation cycle, because what we like to do is once we've checked the boxes for our prospects, they feel comfortable with the discovery, they know that we understand their business, they've seen the demo, they can see how their organization will work in the software, we've showed them proposals, that the budgetary numbers work out well for them. Then we'd lead into a more technical discussion to decipher, what type of deployment option works out best for them. Epicor is a cloud-first organization, which is fantastic because of security. It's our goal as an organization over here at 2W to not only get your ERP off-premise, but anything and everything, whether it's your file servers, your CAD servers, your phone systems, being on premise is not secure, and getting as much of your infrastructure into the cloud as possible, being housed in one of Microsoft's tier 1 power cooling data centers, they're investing billions of dollars per year on security alone. So the cloud in general checks the box for security. Getting off premise checks the box for security. What's nice about Epicor is we have what we call multi-factor authentication. It's an industry terminology. If you don't have it, add that to your technology roadmap. You need it for all types of devices and software, and Epicor calls it identity provider. So right out of the gateway, we're going to implement that multi-factor authentication to make sure that no bad actors are getting into your software. And then there's just, the overall software. We've got field level security, screen level security, user level security. Obviously, we don't want Billy, Bob, Joe in shipping seeing financials. Maybe we don't want to throw too much at a new hire and give them complete access to the whole system. So it's our job at the beginning of the implementation to set up those security parameters based on your requirements. And what's nice about Epicor is when you purchase the software, you're not only investing in the software, but you're investing in the people to get you to the finish line and then support you for a lifetime. But Epicor's research and development, their education team is in the same building as their development team. So it's nice that whenever there's a new release in security or a new release in just field level, whatever it might be, you can access the Epicor Learning Center to learn about what's new, what's exciting, what's changing. You can train your employees. You can, take a look at how well that they're doing with their daily processes to see if maybe they need more homework. You kind of track their progress, and you can also get certified, whether it's in any type of module, but security as well. So lots of security functionality in Epicor. From a 2W perspective, we are all encompassing a tech company. So we will kind of handhold you through the process of improving your security posture right out of the gateway, no matter if it's just your ERP or any other piece of infrastructure you have in place.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have for today. That was a great discussion. So thank you so much, Chelsea, for hopping on. We hope this helped everyone understand how vital it is to dig deep and understand your needs before hopping into an ERP evaluation. If you leave with anything, let it be that the process is a long haul. It's not a sprint, and it's crucial to think about everything we talked about today. Remember that although it is a time commitment, everything you put in during the evaluation will pay you back when finding the right ERP system for you. So thank you, everyone. Chelsea, thank you, and we'll talk again next month.